everyone. I'm Nicole Holmes, Vice President of Global Customer Marketing here at SAP Concur. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Balance Sheet, our thought leadership series for finance leaders like you navigating today's rapid change with clarity and confidence. Today's episode explores one of the biggest questions in business right now. Is AI a revolution or just a lot of hype? And more specifically, what does that mean for finance teams? So to help us unpack it, I'm thrilled to welcome Brenda Bown, Chief Marketing Officer of AI at SAP. Brenda has been on the front lines of AI adoption across industries, and she's here to share what's real, what's next, and how finance leaders can separate signal from noise. Brenda, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. It's great to be here with you.
Well, Brenda, let's just dive right into it. So AI is everywhere right now. Some call it revolutionary, others say it's overhyped. But from your perspective, is AI a true game changer for finance teams, or is there really just a lot of noise that they need to cut through?
Well, I have to say that both are true, Nicole. So yes, there is a lot of noise. I would classify it more as a lot of things that people are saying and a lot of perceptions that are happening. And at the same time, it is a true game changer. So first, let's keep in mind that generative AI, it is not just about making an individual team member job easier, which is a lot of that productivity hype that is happening. It's true. It improves productivity, but I think that generative AI, it is about producing tangible business outcomes for teams and for organizations and for departments. And finance is an area where AI can drive real impact, and we have seen it with. I'll give you an example, Accenture. Accenture is a great example. In accounts receivable, they use generative AI to form their lead to cash process. So essentially what they did is that they created an accountant agent, and you probably have heard a lot about agents lately. And that accountant agent matches each payment to the correct invoice. So before they started using the accountant agent, the payments didn't match the invoice amounts. They lacked payment details from clients, which is a lot of what our finance teams are used to hearing, right? And then the collections teams followed up on invoices that had already been paid sometimes, right? So there was a lot of manual work and kind of double work, if you will. And overall, Accenture had less than 30% automatic hit rate. So that resulted in more than 250,000 manual entries. So that's a ton of manual work. And with AI, they used machine learning, and they started determining which payments match which invoices. And then the system suggested those matches so they can be quickly approved. So to give you an example, if a client paid $1,200 and it didn't mention what that was for, AI went and looked at all the patterns, all the payment patterns, and started matching and saying, hey, like, does this goes with this invoice number because it matches the number from last month, and do you want to mark it as paid, right? So all that manual process was automated. So then the finance team just clicked approve, and they went on with their day. And that saves a lot of money, a lot of hours, and a lot of manual processing, right? So it really improves the accuracy and the speed of getting to the cash quickly, which is what you want in a finance team. It accelerates collections. It frees up teams from that manual work so they can focus on other strategic activities. And that's just one example on how it can change the game in finance teams specifically. And there's so many other examples because we work with many customers across the board.
So when it comes to finance, where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI? Is it like automation? Is it forecasting? Is it something like fraud detection, or something totally different?
Well, I would say all of the above. But most importantly, Nicole, I think that where AI comes to life is contributing to the growth of an organization and being that strategic center, right? Because finance is that department that it has become more strategic over time, right? And it contributes to the growth of the company. You know, like you have heard probably like AI before, talking about hype that we talked a little bit before. Last year was the year of POCs, right? Proof of concepts. And this year is about making AI real. So we have very tangible examples of automation, of improving and forecasting, not only fraud detection, but fraud prevention, right? So actually being proactive about preventing fraud. And AI can help solve any of those problems. And technology has contributed to those and to solving those problems. But now AI, the speed in which AI is actually helping that is incredible, right? It's exponential. You can automate high volume transactions, all of the repeatable tasks that we talked about, like invoice processing, reconciliation. Finance team can handle that growth without the proportional staffing increases. So you could rescale and upscale people that were doing all that manual work into more strategic work for the organization. And that's where the contribution to growth happens. AI can also help improve cash flow and liquidity management. So think about all the real-time insights into your receivables, payables, spending patterns, and that's how AI can help optimize that working capital, because it can fuel that reinvestment and that expansion of the investment. We oftentimes talk about AI and agents in this case, that it kind of that digital assistant that a lot of people are either using out of the box agents that we are giving to customers, and they're also building their own, right? So with that in mind, you can actually think about a world where you automate all the manual work and you actually think about new business models and new ways to fuel your business, right? So that is, I think, that word, it helps a lot as well in finance teams. And then finally, I think on compliance, Nicole, like compliance and security, like we know that finance teams have to, and a lot of organizations have international teams, right? And you have to cross international boundaries. That is extremely important today, for example, with tariffs, right? I mean, that theme is very popular these days as well. And AI can help you boost compliance at scale, right? So intelligent automation is going to not only reduce manual errors, but it's also going to ensure that you're compliant to policies, to regulations across regions. And it's going to minimize your risk as your business grow. I talked with Cirque du Soleil, one of our customers recently, and they were talking about how each one of their shows is a different P&L, right? And how their finance teams had to deal with very, very different suppliers depending on where the show was going to be in the world, right? And how they were using agents, and the agent that they used for each one of those business units or P&Ls was different, right? Because they had to adjust to different suppliers and different regulations in multiple countries, right? So all of that can be automated with agents. So it can really help fuel the growth of an organization and the expansion of an organization.
All right, Brenda. So we know that finance leaders are known for being risk averse. So how can they decide whether AI is worth the investment for their particular organization?
And that's a great question, Nicole, because one of the best ways to select AI, an AI solution, and we talked about making AI real, right? And it's really carefully considering the return on investment, the ROI, and the value that is bringing to your business. So when you consider AI solutions, your organization is going to benefit from measurable improvements in operational efficiency, in productivity, in compliance. So those questions are super important, and that's going to make finance leaders, or help make finance leaders less risk averse, right? If you start talking about operational efficiency, which is something that finance leaders think a lot about today, We talked about reduced labor costs. So you are able to rescale people into other areas of the organization. But we also have intelligent automation, right? That leads to faster task completion and drives that operational efficiency. We talked about the reasoning and the action, right? That AI helps drive, getting those real-time insights and getting questions answered in natural language. So that is going to reduce the time that is spent gathering and analyzing that data. Then we can talk about productivity too, right? Like AI also helps you personalize those user experiences, right? So depending on the role that the user has, it's going to adapt to your language, to your location. So that increases the job satisfaction of people as well, right? So the ROI is not only tangible from an automation and operational efficiency standpoint, but also productivity of people. And then last but not least, I think trust, security, and compliance are extremely important, right? So AI is very powerful in flagging and helping you address any compliance issues that you have. And that can be very costly, right? When you don't handle that effectively. So all those considerations are things that finance leaders can look at. And when they see the value and the results, because we have those proof points, right, from customers that are already using these AI solutions, they start getting more at ease in terms of their risk aversion.
So when finance leaders and CFOs out there are evaluating AI-powered solutions, what are some of the questions that they should be asking the vendors of these solutions that they're exploring?
And I talked a little bit about that in the previous question, which is the ROI, Nicole. So I think one of the first questions that finance leaders should ask is, how can I measure the tangible ROI of your AI solutions, right? And we can dig a little bit deeper into that, because first of all, you need to be a trusted vendor, right? And we know that trust is earned. So do you truly infuse, as a vendor, do you truly infuse compliance and security throughout all your solutions and governance? Do you have a commitment to protecting the safety and the security of the data, which is customers' data at the end of the day, right? And we talk about data being the foundation and the fuel for AI, right? Like the more harmonized and the richer the data is, the better the result and the output of that applied AI is going to be, right? So one of the things that I would ask is like, what's your data solution at the same time? It's not only about your AI solution, it's also about your data solution. And in the case of SAP, we just launched Data Cloud together with our partner in Databricks, and that is an incredible way to harmonize all of your data across all the line of businesses. And finance teams obviously care about all of that compliance and that security. Also, when you are evaluating AI solutions, you want to understand what is the process of the reasoning and how that solution is going to help your organization accelerate workflows, make better decisions, improve time to value. All that is in the line of the business results and the value that you drive. So the vendor can provide proof points, right? I mean, at SAP, obviously we have customers that are using it and are happy to speak to the results that they have seen. And we also measure those results internally, Nicole, before we put an AI solution in market. And then last but not least, I would say, like, also you want to make sure that it works across the board, right? Like we hear about interoperability. In the world of agents, you're going to hear more about agent-to-agent collaboration. So when you go and select an AI solution, you want to make sure that it works across other things that you're already using. I mean, the reality is a lot of teams, a lot of organizations use multiple solutions, and they're going to have AI throughout all of them, right? So, for example, with Joel, which is becoming more and more the user interface, the AI user interface for our SAP systems, that that AI solution travels with you, right? So no matter what application you're using, it travels with you, and it has the ability to look at the patterns, the behaviors, the transactions that you're making, and solve problems with you based on all that data. So that interoperability and connectivity and collaboration in terms of agents is going to be really important to look at.
That's really interesting, Brenda. So another question is, what can finance teams do to balance AI automation with both accuracy and compliance?
That's a key question and a tough one, because we have to remember, Nicole, that AI augments human ingenuity, right? It's not replacing human judgment at the same time, right? So when it comes to financial accuracy and compliance, of course, AI is going to help us leap forward in exponential ways, but we have to make sure that we keep humans in the loop for high impact decisions. We have talked about, okay, so is AI going to replace my job? And the reality is, like, somebody using AI is going to do that, right? So we have to make sure that the people that are in very strategic and in critical roles, right, know how to use this tools and this innovation properly. So AI can also make mistakes, right? So people should be in the loop in critical moments, and that's the fine balance, right? So especially in finance, where that accuracy and that compliance are non-negotiable, right? Like that stable stakes, and you need to have that transparency and that explainability. So you need to understand the people that are working with AI and that are choosing and using this AI innovation and tools. They need to understand what is the reasoning that is going behind the output that they're going to see, right? So the teams can understand and trust. And then when it's needed, they can tweak the result, they can challenge it, or they can change some of the parameters, right? The other thing is it's important to establish strong governance from the start. Set very clear rules on how AI is going to be used, in which workflows, and for what specific tasks, right? And establish those guardrails and continue to monitor risk, do some risk monitoring, policy compliance, and continue to perfect the system together, right? And last but not least, I think empowering the team to be very strategic. So not only to supervise what AI is doing and approving things, but to think very strategically about how AI is improving the process and how they can use AI to even go further, right? So they can actually upskill the teams and focus more on the planning, on the insight, utilization, and on decision making.
Wow, there's so many great insights you have, but I'm going to just ask one last question to you. So, Brenda, if you could give one piece of advice to a finance leader who's just starting to explore AI, what would you tell them?
I would say two things. One is, you asked me for one, but I'm going with two, Nicole. So I would say be curious, right? I mean, really, curiosity is so important, because that's how you learn. And there's so many resources out there. And even looking at the business processes that you have today, there's so many resources for people to understand